Progressive protects more than just your home and car. You could save when you bundle your motorcycles, ATVs, boats, and RVs. Doesn't that sound good? Like the sound of your boat cruising along the Intercoastal. And there's the sound of the prop hitting a really big rock. And now the sound of waves, because the engine stopped. But you know what does sound good? You're covered with Progressive. So bundle all your vehicles and home in one place and save with the multi-policy discount. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers.
Hello, everyone out there, and welcome to Monique Stallings Ministries. Tonight we're going to be talking about the topic, the meaning behind Black Lives Matter. And Minister John Stallings is going to bring forth the pros, the cons about the topic Black Lives Matter. He's going to bring forth information, sound information, along tying that into a Christian perspective. So with all ado, I want to go ahead and turn the mic over to Minister Stallings so we can get this broadcast started. And please, by all means, chat, make comments. If you're not hearing us clearly, or when you're not hearing him clearly when he speaks, please let him know, because we need to know that everybody can hear and have a voice in the chat box. Okay? So here goes Minister Stallings.
Hello, my brothers and sisters tonight, and I hope you guys are having a good night tonight. And this is Minister John Stallings, and tonight we're going to be talking about some hot, heated issues tonight. One is we're going to be talking about the meaning behind why Black Lives Matters. And then the second one, we're going to be talking about how that relates to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who we considered the father of the civil rights movement. And then we're going to be talking about the race question, who we are, who we are. If we call African, the Black American, Negroes, or what, the history behind a little bit of that too, okay? So that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. So I guess what we're going to do, we're going to get started with, let's see here, the civil rights movement. It's kind of, the way I read it is that we're going to start with Dr. King, back in 1963, his famous letter from Birmingham jail. And while he was there, he went through a whole lot of suffering while he was there. He was called to that. So I'm going to read a little bit of the excerpts from that. But prior to doing that, I'm going to say that when Dr. King arrived there in Birmingham, Alabama, during that particular time, that was considered to be Birmingham the most racist, the most discriminatory state and city in the United States. And just prior to that, before his arrival, George Wallace said his famous words were, segregation today, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever. So that's what he meant. So we're going to get into a little bit of Dr. King's letter from the Birmingham jail, because that letter, many theologians have been talking about that, senators, and right after that letter was written, probably back in 1964, we realized that the civil rights law was passed. So this is a very important letter. We all are very, familiar with Dr. King, his oratory when he was talking about, I have a dream. But this is a very powerful letter. So I'm going to read some of it here, okay? My dear, April the 16th, 1963. My dear fellow clergymen, while confined here in Birmingham City Jail. I came across your recent statements calling out present activities unwise and untimely. Seldom, if I ever do, I pause to answer criticisms of my work and my ideas. But since I feel that you are men of good will and your criticisms are sincerely set forth, I would like to answer your statement in what I hope will be patient and reasonable terms. I think I should give the reason of my being in Birmingham. Since you have been influenced by the argument of outsiders coming in, I have the honor of serving as president of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, an organization operating in every southern state with headquarters in Atlanta, Georgia. We have some 85 affiliates organizations all across the South. Several months ago, our local affiliate here in Birmingham invited us to be on call to engage in a nonviolent direct action program. And if such were deemed necessary, we readily consented. Now I'm going to go back a little later on, and we're going to compare his movement, his affiliation with Why Black Lives Matters, because I think they have like 60 organization affiliates, okay, and growing worldwide. But more basically, I am in Birmingham because justice are here. Okay, pardon me here. Yeah, I'm here, he said, basically because I'm in Birmingham because injustice is here. Just as the prophets of the 8th century BC left their villages and carried their thus said the Lord, far beyond the boundaries of their homes, towns, and just as the Apostle Paul left his village to Tarsus and carried the gospel of Jesus Christ to the four corners of Greco-Roman world, so am I. I compelled to carry the gospel of freedom beyond my own hometown. Like Paul, I must constantly respond to the Macedonian call for aid. And moreover, I am cognizant of the interrelatedness of all communities and states. I cannot sit idly by in Atlanta and not be concerned about what happens in Birmingham. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. Never again can we afford to live in a narrow provincial outside agitator ideal. Anyone who lives in the United States of America can never be considered an outsider anywhere within its bounds. Now, in any nonviolent campaign, there are 4 basic steps that we take. 1, collecting of the facts to determine whether injustice are there. Number 2, negotiation. Number 3, self-purification. And 4, direct action. We have gone through all of these steps in Birmingham. Birmingham is probably the most thoroughly segregated city in the United States, as I said earlier. Its ugly record of police brutality is known in every section of the country. Its unjust treatment of Negroes in the courts is a notorious reality. There have been more unsolved bombings of Negro homes and churches in Birmingham than in any city in this nation. These are the hard, brutal, unbelievable facts. And on the basis of these conditions, Negro leaders sought to negotiate with the city fathers, but the political leaders consistently refused to engage in good faith organization and negotiation. Thank you. Now, on these basis of these promises, the Reverend Shuttleworth and the leaders of Alabama Christian Movement for the Human Rights agreed to call a moratorium on any type of demonstration. As the weeks and months unfolded, we realized that we were the victims of broken promises. The signs remain, as in so many experiences in the past. We were confronted with blasted hopes, and the dark shadow of a deep disappointment settled upon us. So we had no alternative except that of preparing for direct action. And local and national communities, okay, and all the other thing is said, for direct action, whereby we would present our very bodies as a mean of laying our case before the consciousness of the local and national community. We were not unmindful of the difficulties involved, so we decided to go through the process of self-purification. We started having workshops on nonviolence and repeated asked the question, are you able to accept the blows without retaliation? Are you able to endure the ordeals of jail? Or as Jesus said, if somebody smite you on the right cheek, turn the other cheek too. Are you willing to do that? Then it said, now, you may well ask, why direct action? Why sit-ins and marches? Isn't negotiation a better path? You are exactly right in your call for negotiation. Indeed, this is the purpose of direct action.
Leftovers or the DMV
Number 97.
or house cleaning or Chumba Casino always brings the fun. Play over 100 different games online for free from anywhere. You could redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. Live the Chumba life. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details. Leftovers or the DMV
Number 97.
or house cleaning or Chumba Casino always brings the fun. Play over 100 different games online for free from anywhere. You could redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. Live the Chumba life. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Action, nonviolence. Hey, Ann, I'm glad Miss Anna's lucky joining us tonight. Okay, and so like Dr. Kim, we'll get back to the article here. You may well ask, why direct action? Why sit-ins and marches? Isn't negotiation a better path? You are exactly right in your call for negotiation. Indeed, this is the purpose of direct action. Nonviolent direct action seeks to create such a crisis and establish such creative tension that a community that has constantly refused to negotiate is forced to confront the issue, just as Socrates felt that it was necessary to create a tension in the mind of so many individuals that could rise from the bondage of myths and half-truths to the unfathomed realms of creative analysis and objective appraisal. We must see the need for nonviolent gadfires to create the kind of tension in society that will help men rise from the dark depths of prejudice and racism to the majestic heights of understanding and brotherhood. And I noticed he used the word gadflies, but I like to use the word nowadays butterflies. Butterflies because it's so colorful. It comes from a cocoon, but then it bursts into something so beautiful. And America is like a butterfly. We're all different colors, you know? So that's what I like to say. You know, I like that analogy. So y'all just bear with me. And now back to Dr. King. My friends, I must say to you that we have not made a single gain in civil rights without legal and nonviolent pressure. History is a long and tragic story of the fact that privileged groups seldom give up their privilege voluntarily. Individuals may see the moral lights and give up their unjust posture. And then say, we know through painful experience that freedom is never voluntarily given by the oppressor. It must be demanded by the oppressed. Frankly, I never yet engaged in a direct action movement that was well timed, according to the timetable of those who have not suffered unduly for the disease of segregation. For years now, I have heard the word wait. It rings in the ear of every Negro with the piercing familiarity. That word Negro that he used, we're going to be dealing with that later on. Negro, we've been called Negro, African American, Black American. Who are we? But anyway, we're going to move on. He said, but this weight has always meant never. It has been a tranquilizing drug, relieving the emotional stress for a moment, only to give birth to an ill-formed infant of frustration. We must come to see with the disgusted jurists of yesterday that justice too long delayed is justice denied. And we have waited for more than 340 years for our constitutional and God-given rights. The nations of Africa and Asia are moving with jet-lag speed towards the goal of political independence. And we still creep at horse and buggy pace towards the gaining of a cup of coffee at a lunch counter. Perhaps it is easy for those who have never felt the stinging darts of segregation to say, wait. But when you have seen vicious mobs.
Lucky Land Casino asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Of lynch. Your mothers and fathers at will are drowned, and your sisters and brothers at whim. When you have seen hate-filled policemen curse, kick, brutalize, and even kill your black brothers and sisters with impunity, when you see the vast majority of over 20 million Negro, that word Negro, brothers smothering in an airtight cage of poverty in the midst of an affluent society, when you suddenly find your tongue twisted when your speech stammering as you seek to explain to your 6-year-old daughter why she can't go to a public amusement park called Fun Park that had just been advertised on television, and see the tears welling up in her little eyes when she is told that Fun Town is closed to colored children, and see the depressing clouds of inferiority begin to form in her little mental sky. And then we see her begin to distort her little personality by unconsciously developing a bitterness towards white people. When you have to concoct an answer for a 5-year-old son who is asking in an agonizing pathos, Daddy, why do white people treat colored people so mean? Now remember the word colored, Negro, colored, African American. So, but they say, the little boy said, Daddy, why do white people treat colored people so mean? When you take a cross-country drive and find it's necessary to sleep night after night in the uncomfortable corners of your automobile because no motel will accept you. When you are humiliated day in and day out by nagging sign reading white men and colored. And when your first name become nigger and your middle name become boy, however old you are, and your last name become John, which is my name, and when your wife or mother are never given the respected title that she desired of Mrs., and when you are haunted by day and night by the fact that you are a Negro living constantly at tiptoe stance, never given the opportunity to be who you are and express American, be part of the dream. Okay. Now, one other thing I want to say, I'm gonna bring this home to where I'm at. My son just graduated here in San Antonio, and this, let y'all know what it's all about. See, I used to say it Black American, but now I heard one of the great speakers speak this week, and he was saying that we come from a national descent, African descent, and that's where I'm coming from. But anyway, my son has graduated from high school, MacArthur High School, and we was over in Windcrest, Texas, and we was driving the van, and all of a sudden I got ready to make a turn, and then all of a sudden as I made that left turn, and the police lights came on. It was a state trooper, and the next thing that I experienced were the sounds came from the police. They had the gun drawn, and they were saying, "Driver, throw the keys out the car. Put your hand on the steering wheel." And my son, who had just graduated, had his gown on, cap and gown on. He was success on National Honor Society. He said, "Dad, this is a little intense for a regular traffic stop." I said, "Yes, it is, son." And then he told me to get out, and I got out. And then he said, "You have any other passengers?" I told my wife to get out. And then we had Miss Anna, who's on the podcast tonight, and she's our little Jewish friend. And Nadia, my two sons, and my wife Monique. And it was a very frightening thing. Any negative move that I would have made, I would have been another tragedy. And then I told my wife to get out, and then she wanted to go back in there and tell everybody. I said, "No, Monique, be cool. Don't go back up in there. They will shoot you." And so anyway, we went back, and everybody got out, and we went back to the back. And then the thing I knew was they asked me. I told them, I said, "I don't know why." I asked them, "Why you pulled me over?" He said, "That van is reported as stolen." I said, "What?" And then the bottom line, it was, then they checked. My wife had to show the registration. They wouldn't let me move. Now, I'm a business owner in this same area and a minister. And then we told them, they said the tag was stolen and replaced. Somebody took our tag, and so it was the tag was reported as stolen. And but that was bad. That's dealing with not good police tactics, because we could have gotten killed. Now, this was a great day, but this day would go back down in memory with my son, who was one of his great days. And then from there, we went on home with no tag. They removed the tag, and they got to church. I got to church and told everybody, "Check your tags." And because it could have been something really, really worse. I could have been dead. You wouldn't hear me talking tonight. And there's many more episodes like that. So I just wanted to, take some time to talk a little bit about that and bring it back home. Okay. And, that's some of the things that we're going to talk about. I think, Monique, you want anything to say?
Yes, everyone. So Minister John has been talking about different things that we as people, from a Christian perspective, because we've got our friend who's very supportive, Anna Slucky, and we've got Miss Bonnie there as well. But we all, at that time, at that point, we were all held up, but they were mostly focused on Minister Stallings. And it was no questions asked. It was individuals who themselves were nervous. But don't get me wrong, it turned out fine, because once they found out that the car belonged to us, however, these officers were apologetic. They were very sorry. Matter of fact, they were showing us everything on their scanners. So again, when we talk about, as this ties into, police brutality and things that aren't going right, we have cops that are good, and we have those that are bad. And so we and people in society need to, of course, it's like in the Bible, you separate the goats from the sheep. And because of that, we need to have a system where we're able to decipher the good cops from the bad cops. And we need to be able to decipher, racism and all malice. Because when you're dealing with racism, we can have racism within our own communities. Again, we can have racism within our own races, being based on the color of your skin. And Minister John, myself, and my son today, again, we do research where we actually start looking, as to where these doctrines and philosophies come from. Again, we can take it from a biblical perspective. Why do we have all of these different denominations? Because if you look at it wholeheartedly, it is dealing with racism. It is dealing with the pigmentation of a person's color. It is dealing with the region for which that individual has come from. And today we also learned, everybody I'm sure who's ever studied and heard about the Darwin theory, which actually Darwin was not he actually expounded on the evolution of what was given. Antonio, we have our guest Antonio. What was the man that actually started in Western civilization?
I'm not sure, but I remember you told him he was a person in times of ancient Rome.
Yeah, he was. My son doesn't have the name specifically, but he was in a time of ancient Rome where he's the one that came up with this. But in the century that Darwin was in, he just expounded on those things. But then again, Darwin, as racist as he was, he had lineages from a Jewish person, and yet he brought anticism. He went against the word of God, saying that Africans were created from monkeys and apes, and these theories were being taught in the classes as they are today. So we as Christians, we've actually had some of our own children believing these things when the Word of God, again, never ever stated that. So you have a man who expounded on the evolution arena where they justify treating individuals whose pigmentation was different from theirs to be able to try to treat them anyway or say they were less than human beings. And then there was another man through this theology. He created a book, and Minister Stallings is going to speak about that. But we have Hitler, who wanted a pure race. What is a pure race? He hated the Jews. He didn't want any Jew to be alive or to live. And so we have all these things. And even with the Black Lives Matter movement, you have the pros and you have the cons. But a lot of times people are saying Black Lives that matter. They really don't understand the history behind what is Black Lives Matter, or who is the individual who came up by putting individuals in races and saying, we're going to put you in certain races so that we can take over superiority. And like I've said, and I've said in my other radio podcast, that people would say you're black, and I said I'm not black, but my DNA, again, coming from Louisiana, I knew that I had more than one type of DNA in me. I came from more than one ancestral tribe. And so now that we're having this, I'll call it an awakening of who we are. First of all, we know that we're God's child, or we're God's children. But secondly, we have allowed these anthropologists who came up with theories who were racist in nature to separate individuals from each other. And now we're having this talk right now. And I'm thanking God that I have this platform to speak on. So now I'm going to turn the mic back over to Minister Stallings and let him continue this discussion.
Thank you, Monique, my gorgeous queen, beautiful wife. Now, I was mentioning also about my son Antonio. After that he graduated, and just let me tell you, because he could have gotten assassinated that night too. But he went on. He has, like I said, he was a National Honor Society's young man. He went on and got a $84,000 presidential scholarship. His brother is he went in the Air Force, mechanic, volunteering right now for the National Guard. And Adam, she's a wonderful songbird that's in the automobile with us, and my wife Monique. She's now almost got her master's degree in Christian psychology, and I'm a pastor and a civil rights advocate. I'm an advocate also.
And let's say with Miss Adam. Miss Adam made a comment.
Miss Adam made a comment. Yes, we were all made by a creator who created us to be different in color, size, male, and female. I like what you said about the viewed butterfly. Wow, so true. Thank you, Miss Anna. Okay. Now I'm gonna kind of curve a little, take a little curve a little. Take a little twist here because I said I was going to talk a little bit about now the why Black Lives Matter, the meaning behind this great movement, which is a misunderstood movement. So you've got to realize now, to understand the power of movement that began in 2013, that we have to jump back nearly about 400 years to grasp on perhaps in the same struggle in the black community fought then. The idea that all people should be treated fairly in the eyes of the law and institutions. Now, I like this young lady that called, her name is, well, not young, her name is Dr. Finney Coleman, the UNM Associate Professor. She said, ultimately, when our responses become human responses as opposed to racial responses, that is when we are going to change as a society. Wow. I like that. I want to stay with that because I've heard some of my people, Pastor Dr. Miles Monroe said that we become human first. We become a child of God first, and then we part of whatever nationality we are. Because our manufacturer, the one that made us, he the one that designed, gave us a personality. He's the one that gave us an assignment. We do personality tests as part of my ministry. We give personality tests to find out who people are, where they came from, and what kind of gift they have. We use Briggs Myers and Carl Jung tests. I think it's a 64-question test. And if you answer those questions correctly, you will find exactly who you really are. You will find out why the Creator created you and what kind of personality you have. I think it's like 17 personalities. But I'm not saying that we all schizophrenic now, where you land. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that there are different types of personality, an extrovert and an introvert. And when you take those tests, it comes back and let you know what kind of skills and talents you have. Mine came back, when I answered mine, it came back I was an extrovert. That's probably see why I'm getting the microphone from my wife. I want to talk a little bit more. I'm just joking, y'all. But I'm an extrovert. I'm an ENFJ. Now, it comes back and tell you what famous people that have your similar personality. Mine is President Obama. I have his type of personality. Okay, so that's the kind of, that's the kind of personality I have, like President Obama. Okay, and it tells me the type of work that I need to be in. It tells me that I need to be in the business arena. And I'm a business consultant. I've been in the financial industry for about 35 years, selling cars, doing real estate, mortgage broker, and so forth now. And also I'm an advocate for the veterans. I help them get the rights that they need. and figure out who they are and get the rights and everything else. So now that's a little bit about what we do in dealing with purpose. And the other thing is, my wife moves things around here, but anyway, I want to let y'all know that now we're dealing with back to what the purpose of the meaning behind the why Black Lives Matters. The University of New Mexico professor said, Freeman Coleman said, the matter of the movement with the 1920s and when the association led the Black civil rights struggle dealing with fighting racial violence, discrimination, and unemployment. That's one thing. The other thing that they was talking about, this whole movement began. Can y'all hear me out here? Because we have a little problem with the mic. This whole movement began in 2000, I think, 2013. Let me make sure. This movement began, let's see here, 2012, about Trayvon. That was when he got killed. Trayvon Martin was fatally shot in 2012. He was 17 years old. As he walked home from a convenience store, George Zimmerman, who was patrolling the townhouse community in Sanford, Florida, pulled the trigger. Zimmerman later claimed to have shot the teenager in self-defense during a physical altercation. It took 2 weeks before Zimmerman was eventually arrested and charged with Martin murder. Black Lives Matter, founded in 2013 in response to Zimmerman's acquittal. The global organization said that its mission is to eradicate white supremacy and build local power to intervene in violence inflicted on black communities by states and vigilantes, by combating and countering acts of violence, creating space for black imagination and innovation, and centering blacks' joy. We are winning immediately improvement in our lives. Black Lives Matter 3 founders, Alicia Gossel, Patrice Curlers, and Opal Tometi, said that the project is now a member-led global network that includes more than 40 chapters. Okay, and as that goes, 40 chapters, they kind of like the Tower of Babylon, I see. You know, in the Bible, Genesis. When this group movement is so huge right now that everyone, all organization, many, I guess the National Football League, the Basketball League, National NBA is behind it. Everyone is getting behind this movement right now. And as God says in the book of Genesis, when the men decided to build the Tower of Babylon, that tower was going up so quickly. And God was saying, look at what these people are doing. He said, we have to stop them because the work there becomes one, they're united, and nothing will be impossible for them. So God had to slow that work down and change the languages, and that's what we are doing now. You know, because the only thing was they want to make a name for themselves. Now, you know, Black Lives, he's speaking for everybody. You know, so the other thing, I think we'll need want to say something else, but we just, you know, the movement is moving on. There's some positives and good, the pros and the cons with it. So we'll be talking about that a little later. Monique, want to say something now?
Yes, Minister Stallings, as you talked about, we're going to talk about Black Lives Matter and giving the pros and the cons. What I'd like for you to address in this radio podcast is for the Black Lives Matter. We need to talk about, you said that you would talk about the issues of the Black Lives Matters, the pros and the cons, those that have a mission really to change lives, but again, not just black lives, but all lives. Because just like when Martin Luther King said in his speech, it's about basically humanity. It's about all people of all races. But however, I'd like you to go ahead and expound more on the Black Lives Matter organizations, because they're using the the logo Black Lives Matter, and people are getting confused as for those that are for and those who are just who wanting to just be chaotic about it. Because in every race, you have the good organizations and you have the bad organizations. So can you kind of expound on there before the broadcast is over? Thank you.
Yes, I'll be glad to expound on that a little bit more. Because as I said, the Black Lives Movement, it has a lot, it has, I think, about 60 different affiliates right now. And, there's many organizations a part of that. I think one of them might be, well, one is Mrs. Alicia Gaza. She has a movement. She's part of that. Her movement was, to my understanding, from my reading, was that the reason she got involved was because she has a PhD in psychology. And at one time, she couldn't understand why her daughter, her brother, her sister hated her so much and so rude to her. And then later on, she found out that she had some mental issues. And so from there, and that's why Mrs. Gaza decided to go ahead and, Miss Phillips, her last name is Phillips too, decided to go into psychology and get a PhD. And that's her movement. She helped people understand that some people are doing things because of mental illnesses.
Okay, what's the
racism? And it's quite a few. But
so, Minister Stallings, so what you're saying is, so her Black Lives Matter is dealing with people of ancestors, African descendants that's dealing with the mental issues. Now, what other organizations that are using the logo Black Lives Matter?
Good question. If the lesbian and gay rights, they part of that too. Their life matters. And dealing with the veterans, I think even the veterans getting out of the jails, we're dealing with them also. So that's a good movement. Like I said, there's so many things. You're dealing with artists, dealing with these rappers, singers, they are there too. So we got people from all across the spectrum who's involved with that, okay, with that movement. But before we end, I really want to cover another section of this, because tonight, just prior to this, I was watching a video, a TV on YouTube, and it's called Human Zoos. Okay, can you hear me now better, Anna? Okay. Before we would talk, I was watching a video on YouTube called Human Zoos, like a zoo. America forgotten history of scientific racism, the Darwin theory. Monique mentioned some of that. At one time, Darwin theory, they had went and got some African Americans. They were trying to compare them. They got some Africans. And they were trying to compare and saying that the black Africans, came from apes and stuff, gorillas. And that we would have ape and have man. So the thing is, then it was a circus thing. So then all of a sudden we had this one pastor named Mr. James Gardner. He said now because people with 40,000 of people would go to the zoo and see this guy that looked like in the African American in the circle in the thing with a little monkey. So he said, no, we can't be doing that. So he said, this is a Christian country placing African Americans on exhibition to prove the Darwin theory is unchristian-like, is un-Christ-like. We should not be doing that because it degrades the man and degrades all race, and we all came from God. So nobody can say that we are just, so that's the kind of thing that's been going on. They call it a boar in the cave with a monkey. And that's part of what we've been dealing with. And then from there, that same little man, so much little boy that was in there, they moved him to some kind of place, a mental institution in Lynchburg, Virginia. And then they said allegedly that he committed suicide. because he was so frustrated with what they were doing to him. And there's other more theories that we will probably get into. And then I want to touch a base, one little thing here also. The other thing I found out was that the eugenics theory, scientists from Yale and all over the United States, what they do, they started out collecting information on people, I guess African American, Mexican, and Latinos. They was keeping records of the races. And then what they were doing from there, they was gathering information to prove that African descent people was inferior to white. And there was another book came out called The Rising Tide of Color by Lothrop Stoddard. The title, I think the theme was The Threat Against White World Supremacy. And it was really just gathering information, pushing the doctrine of Marxism, Karl Marx. And so it's kind of like what I said now is taking the DNA test. I took the DNA test, my wife, she did it for me. It was a gift for Christmas, for my birthday. She did the test for me. She ordered the test for me, 23andMe. And then it came back telling me that I'm like really about 85% African descent. The other thing, I have Native American in me. I have Chinese and Southeastern in me. I have European in me. And then the other thing that came back, it says that also they were able to take the DNA from a mummy in Egypt. And it shows that I'm a descendant of Pharaoh Ramesses III. Ramesses III. And I was like, wow, what's going on? So then I was amazed because around my eyes, if you know me, it's a circle in both of my eyes. And when they pulled a picture of what Pharaoh Ramesses III would look like today, it had the same thing. It also tells you that family, Pharaoh Ramesses III, had an alcohol problem. You know, I defeated that, but I had that in my family too. So that's what this eugenics test kind of like shows. What kind of background you have, what kind of if you have any prone to certain type of health conditions, all of that. So the government is kind of like gathering information on us, to use that to try to prove sometime, I think, that one race is superior to another. They misuse that information now, but the Bible said we all are created in the image of God, and I come from God, So God created me, and that's why I don't want to get this thing twisted, because the whole thing, what I want to do, is really trying to find out who my granddaddy is. See, I was born in South Carolina. Daddy was Herbert Stallings. Apparently, my granddaddy got killed in Augusta, Georgia, crossing the Savannah River Bridge. He was riding his motorcycle to go to the hospital and see his newborn son. But there's no history of that. None of my family members can tell me. So that's the reason, that's my why, that I wanted to find out who my granddaddy is, because it's a family secret. Okay, and so we're getting pretty close. I found another young man that have the same DNA that I have, and he was also 53 years old, and he told me, we found each other on 23andMe, that for 53 years, the man he thought was his dad was not his dad. So now he's looking for his real dad, and we've got something in common. So we're getting pretty close to finding out who my granddaddy is. So we cover a lot of information tonight. So wrapping this thing up, all we were trying to say is that Black Lives Matters is a good movement. But anything, is good. There are pros and cons, good and bad in it. Dr. King movement was very good. He had a lot of good stuff. People criticize him too, some of the leaders. But Dr. King also, we got to be aware now that we don't step out. This the point I really want to drive home tonight, is that we don't want to get to the point where we think we are superior to anybody else. And I heard Conway West said in a speech this week that Dr. King, weeks before he was assassinated, he went to see the Elijah Muhammad. And he told Elijah Muhammad, he said, now, if you think that you can set up your movement in South Carolina, South Carolina, Alabama, and Georgia, you're using a pipe dream. And then Elijah Muhammad told him, if you think you can run into a burning house and integrate it, you thinking a pipe dream too. So Dr. King also said that now if America, his prophecy was this. He said, now if you guys do not get this question right, America, on the race question, it's going to be a nightmare. America will become a nightmare. You'll see all kind of blood streets just pouring in the river, like a river of blood in America on our streets, from one country to another, one nation, one state to another. Now this thing is going to the world. So I'm seeing the prophecy of Dr. King because, see, he said, I stood in the middle, Dr. King said. I was trying to keep peace between the black nationalist group and the civil rights group. I was talking about Jesus, just turn the other cheek, love all men, all people. We all descendants of God, but we from the DNA of Jesus. So Dr. King was trying to do some good things, but now we have a new generation coming up, the millennials and the young people. They're not really familiar with Dr. King. They say, well, Dr. King missed the point just by himself. We are united now, and we are changing the world. So, and with this coronavirus, people, I know here in San Antonio that they wanted to open up the schools. Our president said, if y'all telling the schools, if they do not open up, they will not get any funding. So, some of them still opening up, but a little 15-year-old girl started a petition, said, look, we are fighting for the rights of the school teachers. We don't want them to get exposed to this coronavirus and pass it on to their family and die. And even we don't want to die. And it was a 35,000 people petition, and they're not going to open up schools here in San Antonio until later, in September. It's going to be all by, they're going to be doing it online, which is good. So, the bottom line, for the love of money, people do all kind of crazy things. So, the love thing, and like Dr. King said, I'll end with this. Do not let no man drive you so low to make you hate him. I'm all about love. I'm all about peace. I'm all about gentleness. I'm all about understanding, because knowledge is power. And once we get this power, this knowledge, we'll become very powerful. And racism, really, when in the Navy, I found out racism ain't nothing but ignorance. Because some people said, when I was in the Navy, said, I never saw a black person before. I never communicated, never had met a friend. But now he's my friend. I used to hate black people because somebody told me I hate them. And some black hate white people. Mm-hmm. Hispanics hate black people. Jesus said the color of race is going to be with you until he come back. But we got to learn to live together, brothers. We're going to perish as food, as Dr. King said. Thank y'all for listening. Hope we got something out of this. And Monique?
Thank you, Minister Stallings, for your expounding on Black Lives That Matters. Also, from your own personal experience with your family, with yourself, and also things that you've experienced in the church community. So the bottom line is this. We have to bring facts because we do live in a real world. But we need to also be able to make sure that we understand who we are first. We are first children of God. But the Lord has allowed us to be born in different ethnicities. And those who truly understand where they came from and what they have inside, you're not going to be with the status quo. You're not going to go with everybody else when they said you're black. And I've had this argument for many times, and I've also got it in my own race where they would say, are you white? I go, no. I said, I'm Creole. And the reason why I say that is because I knew the different DNA that I have within me. But then when I did my DNA, again, I keep saying it went further. I have 2.1% of Ashkenazi Jew. I have British and Irish, and I can go on and on. But when I tell someone that, now I'm saying it because I truly understand who I am, and I'm not going to let a theory from Darwin and these other scientists that pushed, because they use the human mind, they knew what to strive for because they're not understanding, like John talked about when we were in the military. I have friends that were very dear and near to me, and they were of all nationalities. And a lot of times they would say the only time I saw, well, they would say black because that's what they were taught, was on television. And the ignorance was broken. And places like in the military, places where you see children who know no color, because after all, it has to be taught in the home. But we as Christians, this is our platform. This is our platform to speak about injustice, regardless of what nationality you are, what language you speak. Know that we are children of God, and we need to speak up for injustice. Like Dr. Martin Luther King says, we need to speak up for injustice. And we need to always take everything from a biblical perspective. And not always what was said in the Bible, because the Jews were against the Gentiles. They were fighting. There's always war. But we need to stand on what Jesus Christ says. He says, if you live in me and I live in you, you can ask for anything and it will be given to you. And I close this out, and I thank you for everyone that's listened to this podcast. Yes, Minister Stallings?
I know we're wrapping up here on this podcast, but I want to let people know that as Christians, the Bible is our manual that we have to live by. That is our basic instruction before leaving Earth. But I'm aware of another Bible that they talk about, the Great Race. The Great Race by Madison Grant. Now that was a book. That was a book that was published, and Hitler used that. He considered that his Bible. And that people were more, white was superior to black. And y'all know what he did to the Holocaust. And there may be a Jewish person listen to me. I know there are. And but all those people got killed because of that false information. So I recommend, from what I'm telling you, what Monique is saying, y'all become like the Bereans. Hear the word of God, hear it from a preacher, then go and search those scriptures and see if it was so. And that's what I have to do. Study to show yourself approved unto God, a workman needed not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. And that's what we tried to do tonight. And we're trying to say, let us live together. Let Hebrews 11:13, let brotherly love continue. That's what I'm all about. I'm advocating love. I don't care what color you are. And I tell people that we are like Baskin Robbins. There's 31 flavors, man. Some might be chocolate, some might be vanilla, some might be strawberry, walnut, or whatever, pearlins and cream. But we all make a difference, okay? Whatever color you are. And heaven is going to be a place.
And this is Monique Stallings with Let's Talk. Everyone have a good evening and just meditate on what was said. And we always say, always go back to the Word of God.
And I love you all. Get up.
Leftovers, or the DMV,
Number 97.
or house cleaning, or Chumba Casino always brings the fun. Play over 100 different games online for free from anywhere. You could redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. Live the Chumba life. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.